Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Princeton, where in our open and welcoming community, we live our message of hope, love, justice, and joy. We extend a special welcome to our visitors this morning. We're really happy that you've joined us. And if you haven't stopped by the newcomer table in Robinson Lounge, please do so after the service so that we can add you to our e-list and make sure you have invitations to all of the many events that we have coming up here at UU Princeton. We began this morning with a prelude by our wonderful bell choir. We're always grateful for the beauty that they bring to our worship life here at UU Princeton. The piece they played was Canon by Pachelbel and arranged by Hal Hobson. And they'll be back for the offertory where they'll play Lord, Make Me an Instrument of Thy Peace by Kevin McChesney. Thank you to our bell choir. Didn't quite make it in the order, but they are here, and we're really grateful for that. There are some other changes to the order before you as well. The candles and pastoral pieces in this service will be back next week. We're going to take them out this morning so that we have a little more time for the questions this week. Speaking of which, this is the question box service, where instead of a sermon, we'll respond to the questions that you've asked via email or have written down and submitted this morning. There's still time to do that. Paper and pencils are in the lobby, as is the question box itself. That's usually the pledge box. This morning it's the question box. It'll go back to be in the pledge box next month. Be ready for that. You can ask about religion and spirituality and theology, or our favorite books or TV shows, or whatever you want. Who is the greatest Pittsburgh Steeler of all time might be a question you might ask. I'll just go ahead and tell you because I know you're all wondering. It's Mean Joe Green, the great defensive lineman in the 70s, greatest of all time. We may not get to all the questions this morning. We usually don't, but we'll get to as many of them as we can. Quick announcement that Skylights will be emailed at noon today. We'll start trying to announce that so you know to look for it in your inbox or in your spam folder. Our monthly newsletter, Skylights, will be out at noon today. And also UU Earth Ministry and Conscious Consumers invite you to sign up for this year's Lent for the Earth Challenge. This new UU Princeton tradition, which is just in its second year, offers you the opportunity to focus your mind and actions on taking better care of our planet during the 40 days of Lent, which this year is March 5th to April 17th. To participate, you choose from one of a variety of challenges like pausing online shopping or abstaining from eating meat on certain days of the week. You can also create your own fasting challenge. For more ideas, check out the lobby after the service, where you can also sign a participation book and get a string to remind you of your next Lent goal. And next Sunday, March 2nd, after the service, Princeton Eats Plants will provide the brunch, and all are welcome to that. They still need a few more plant-based dishes to serve, so if you're interested in helping, please email pep@uuprinceton.org. That's pep@uuprinceton.org, or talk to Joelle and Burton today after the service. And as always, if you don't remember that email address, just email the office through the website, and we'll get it where it needs to go in sometime this week. I think those are our announcements, but we have a very important one from Andy Maskell about our online auction, which just started. Andy's making his way up here to give us our announcement.
Good morning. So I am up to speak briefly about the fellowship auction. You might remember that last year I came up and spoke about the fellowship auction, and I actually told you not to bid because I didn't want the price of a Parnas dinner to go up too high. Not going to go that route this year. This year I'm going to talk to you instead about a fellowship auction offering that I gave in years past. So I actually own a small inflatable sailboat, and I take it out 2 or 3 times a year. Just a fun little toy. And when the weather and the wind are exactly right, it can be lots and lots and lots of fun. So for 3 or 4 years, I offered a ride on my inflatable sailboat as something to bid on in the fellowship auction. And in 2021, Sue Tillett won that sailboat tour. So I had known Sue for 7 or 8 years. I knew who she was, and I assumed she knew who I was. But she ran in her circles, and I ran in my circles, and we didn't really cross a whole lot of paths. We'd say a friendly hello to each other, but not much more. And for those of you that don't know, Sue is blind. She's the woman in the bell choir who has the dog that guides her. So Sue is blind, and we're going on a boat ride together. And this is going to be interesting, a little dinghy in the lake. So I'm not going to go into the specifics of our voyage, but I did learn that Sue is a very adventurous person, and I probably would not have known quite how adventurous she was. She actually had sailing experience and has been blind, as far as I know, her entire life. She was a Mariner Scout, and she actually knew how to sail probably better than I did. She needed a little guidance, and she needed somebody to point her in the right direction, but she liked to go fast, and she liked to test exactly what my boat was capable of handling. And I got to know more about Sue beyond that. I got to know about her past professional life, her love of nature, that when she was a kid, she would climb trees in the neighborhood, and her parents would get phone calls, worried sick about what this blind young girl was doing in their trees and how she would get down. And that the response was always, she'll get down the same way she got up. So Sue and I, we did not become best friends from this day, but we made a bond. She and my family, we had a moment. We had some time together, and over the next few months, we would bring up that experience with my own family and with my own kids. And one day we were walking in the woods not long after, and my son, we heard an unfamiliar bird, and my son said to me, "Dad, I bet Miss Sue would know what that bird is because she's really, really good at bird sounds." So last year, I was here and I told you all about the fellowship auction, and I told you about the auction. But today I'm here to tell you about what I value of the fellowship part. You should participate not just because you can win great prizes, but you get value beyond the prize. You get to experience more about the lives of the members that we have here in our congregation. So if you don't know, or if you haven't been bombarded in emails or announcements, the auction is running right now. The bidding opened on Friday evening, and I'm sure there's an announcement in the order of service that will link you to how you can bid. You can bid online for nearly everything that's on offer, and next Saturday night, as the auction is coming to a close, we're actually having an in-person celebration here. Some of the bidding will transition to in-person. You'll still be able to bid online. It may be a little confusing, and I will admit I'm confused on how it all works, but there will be plenty of instruction and information on how you can bid on these items that are up for our fellowship auction. There's even right outside of service today, after the service is over, there are raffle baskets that are on display that you can purchase tickets for and bid on, and you do not have to be present in order to win those raffle baskets. So I encourage you to take part in the fellowship auction, to bid, because you might learn to make pies, you might play the ukulele, you might get out and find a geocache, you might learn to use a pottery wheel, you might need to catch a ride to the airport, you might get to meet a sheep and then wear a hat that's made out of the wool from that sheep. You might smoke a new cigar, you might try a new type of cuisine, you might go to a game night, you might ride on an old-fashioned tractor, you might take an interesting hike, or any one of dozens and dozens of other things that we are offering from within our congregation. But more importantly, you get to take advantage of the chance to learn about the gifts and the interests of our unique and talented congregation. And you get to deepen the bonds that you hold to the people here at the place that you care and love about. Thank you.
From Adrienne Marie Brown, published yesterday. Oh, beloveds, ask questions. Ask questions. We need a shared context, a something together. Together is the point. This vision is not about precision or prophecy. This is the truth. We are each answers, each somebody's heaven and precious. We shouldn't be so tired. We already belong to the earth, the lush garden, the fresh and salt water, the cave and complexity. Don't believe in trash people, collateral damage, buried history, lost souls, all that hatred is the long lie. No unblooming life is a threat to you. Don't teach your children to wither or delight in enemies. We cannot be better than the worst of us or safer than the danger we allow. We cannot leave poison in the soul. We must pull it whole where it's rooted. We are a pattern. Life and death intertwine, learning to hold the love of God. We are a web, vibrating strands of home, learning to catch our breath. So listen, and ask questions. So we would like to invite our children, youth, and families. We have some of your questions here. Hello.
Wow. Neither you know.
I know, we can't do that. I'd like to, though. There was once a time I could just slide right in. Okay. So I'm going to hand these ones to you, and we could certainly do some of them together. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for those of you who submitted questions in advance. And I'm not sure if we'll have time to take some others, but we will do our best. So I'm going to start with a big question, a question that is one of the most, what we call intimate and ultimate, that we hold close to our hearts and is very, very big. And it is, why are we born? Why are we born? And they asked for our perspective, a UU perspective on why we are here. So my perspective is we're here to love and to grow and to experience things and have relationships with each other, friends and families, and find joy in all the places that we can. And I also acknowledge that we have hard, sad things that happen to us sometimes, right? And with that, we look for places of happiness and care. And then, how about you do one?
Okay, I'll do one of the ones that was handed in this morning. What do platypuses eat? Platypuses eat joyfully and without complaint whatever their parents cook for them. That's what they eat.
That was good. This is also a good question sent in a little earlier. Can you read a Minecraft book for wonder and wisdom sometime? And so I don't know a lot about Minecraft, so I might need some help choosing. But the little bit do I know is that there are some similar values that Minecraft puts out that are very similar to our UU values, like being welcoming to one another and caring for and standing up for one another. So maybe we can work together on finding a good story.
Okay, do hippos, I'm going to edit this one a little bit. Do hippos brush their teeth because it doesn't look like it? They have trouble getting the brush to their teeth. So more often than not, a hippo dentist brushes the hippo's teeth, and there aren't that many of those, so that's why sometimes it doesn't look like it. But the key to know is this: however much money a hippo dentist makes, it's not enough. It's not enough.
This is for, from one of our parents and volunteers, I often have been asked about things that UUs don't allow. Things, and these questions come up maybe when reading the Bible and reviewing creation stories about being rude to someone. So what are our thou shalt nots? So we talk all the time about treating everyone with kindness, including ourselves. So I would say, and we've shared this sometimes as what I sometimes call church rules, that we don't harm ourselves, we don't do things to hurt ourselves, we don't harm other people, and we don't hurt our building or other people's things. We don't do things to make fun of other people or bully other people. And what I often say when folks ask, well, if Unitarian Universalists believe all kinds of things and welcome all kinds of folks, is there ever a time when that doesn't happen? And what I say, share back, is our kind of resting space is if you're here in a place that believes in kindness and you're not acting in ways that are kind, and we say, hey, could you act kindly? We're kind in our words and our actions here, and in every place we are as Unitarian Universalists. But if the person continues not to act kindly and not to act kindly and not to act kindly, we might say, we invite you to work on that someplace else. And when you are able to be in a place where you're acting kindly to others, we would love for you to be back with us.
How long does it take to drive to the moon at 75 miles per hour?
I gave you the good ones.
You gave me the good, yeah. I was told that there'd be no math in this service. So. But I can refer to Karen Uhlenbeck or Alice Deenan. We have lots of mathematicians here in the congregation who can help you with that question.
These are a series of good ones. I'll ask one to Bill and then I'll take one. What is your favorite animal?
I like dolphins.
Would you rather be in the ocean or the pool? The ocean. Would you rather have a dog or a cat?
We have cats, and I've had cats for a long time, although I was raised with dogs too, so I like them all, but cats these days.
Yeah. I don't have a pet either, but if I did, I would like a little lap dog to squish with. What do we like about UU Princeton the most?
I'm going to say two things. I'm going to say the people and the tradition, the history of our congregation is inspiring to me, and I like being a part of that during my days here, and the people who are here today very much.
And I would say all the people I get to work with in very many different ways together, the people I get to learn with all the time and play with. And I would also say our life-saving message. I think it is really, really cool to be part of a tradition and part of a people that puts kindness and care and justice at the forefront of all we do. And I'm really glad that, like many of you, or not many of you, you and maybe some of you, I got to grow up in a UU congregation too. We could do this one last one here. When did you know you wanted to become a reverend, and what sparked that idea?
I knew in 7th grade, give or take, I was going to a Presbyterian church camp for all summer, and I saw a lot of younger ministers doing what I thought I would like to do. I liked how they led people and worked with people. I liked how they worshiped, and they were very friendly. And that was when the sort of candle was lit back then. And then I stopped being Presbyterian and became UU, but that candle stayed lit the whole time. It was back that far, about 7th grade or so.
I did not know in 7th grade. I think I wanted to be a pop star in 7th grade. I knew when I was a young adult and I was at a UUA General Assembly serving as a delegate, where I got to hear the presidents of some of our UU-affiliated seminaries talk. And the particular president was Reverend Rebecca Parker. And she talked about, if you can imagine our world as a tapestry, right? Like something that is woven together with all these little individual threads. And she said, there are some parts of our worldwide tapestry that are fraying, right? The threads aren't coming together. Some may have been broken off. In ministry, it's about working with others to reweave those tapestries and create more love and care in the world. And that's when I knew I wanted to be a UU minister. Thank you all for all of your wonderful questions. We don't have time right now to take some of your others, but you are always welcome to come talk to Reverend Bill and me and other leaders in the congregation with your questions. And we'll be staying here together, but we invite you to join your leaders today in Robinson Lounge to go off to your activities.
Well, thank you for submitting your questions. Some of you emailed them, and some of you wrote them down this morning. The ones this morning we're just now seeing, so those will be a little, might take us a minute to read them.
Those are a repeat of what
Okay.
we received earlier.
So I'll start with this one. We're going to go back and forth on this one. Some of them had a few different questions, but I'll start with this one. What is some reading you can suggest for someone who feels that the human has been taken out of work, that the mania of productivity corrupts our souls, that these ideals of productivity for its own sake must necessarily encroach upon home and family and one's own peace of mind? So some books and approaches that have helped me in those areas. The first thing I would say is to read the book Sabbath by Abraham Joshua Heschel, which is a older book, but it goes into the meaning of the Sabbath in the Jewish tradition, which is, he's a prophetic kind of Jewish theologian. And the point of the Sabbath in his line of thinking is to push back against all of that, to push back against how any kind of economic system can dominate you so much that you forget who you are and your own worth. And so the point is you remove yourself from it, whatever it is, for one day a week. In the Jewish context, this means you don't belong to Pharaoh, you belong to God. So that's a good start. And then read Walter Brueggemann, who's a contemporary, more contemporary than Heschel, who also wrote a book on the Sabbath and kind of updates a little bit. And he gets more into capitalism than Heschel did. There's a book, it's dated, but it's called The Corrosion of Character by Richard Sennett. Really, really good book that gets right at that question as well. And I think if you search that as well as Barbara Ehrenreich's, 9 to 5, I think is the name of the book. What is it? Nickel and Dime, that's right. If you search those and kind of let those work through your search engine, you'll get recommendations for other books as well. But I would start with Heschel, The Sabbath. That'll give you the theological framework. And then go to Sennett's The Corrosion of Character, which will give you a fairly modern context for that theological foundation. Would be my recommendation.
And I have a couple. One that I'm reading with some of you now, which is The Inner Work of Age, From Role to Soul. It's intended in some ways for those of us that are in our later years of life, but there is a lot of good kernels and wisdom within it about being a beer and not a doer that might be helpful. I will share one that is on my list, but I haven't gotten to yet, but I do, and that is How to Do Nothing. Resisting the Attention Economy by Jenny Odell. So I haven't read it yet, full disclosure, but do have it on my list. And one is a children's book. I get to read a lot of them. We've shared this one before. It's The Quilt Maker's Gift by Jeff Brumbo. Some of you may be familiar with it, but it is the story of a woman who's a quilt maker who shares that talent with some, prefers not to share it with others, primarily the king, who's looking at it as a transaction, and the kind of metamorphosis that happens.
This was also emailed in, is there a chance that ICE will show up, and what happens if that happens? So yeah, that's a change in the current administration from previous ones. Congregations and religious homes and schools were not going to be investigated by ICE, but that's been lifted. That is being challenged in court. The UUA is part of that as well, which is great. It's great that that challenge is happening. The reality is if ICE were to come in any religious house, they can go in any public place where there's no reasonable expectation of privacy, and they can perform their functions as they wish. And so a lot of religious communities right now are trying to figure out how to cordon off some areas that are not public, that are private areas within the building for which ICE would need a warrant to enter, and they would get it. That's the thing to know, they would get it, and they would be able to go in that space. As far as I know, this hasn't happened yet, but I don't think anyone would be surprised in the current climate if that's something that every faith community, certainly not just UU, will face down the road, and some will face it much more on the front lines than I think most UU congregations would. And should that happen, it'll call for a huge interfaith response. Hopefully that bridges not just liberal and moderate faith, but liberal to moderate to conservative faith. This is a freedom of religion calling that I would hope could build a big coalition in response to.
We had one that came in. How do we work the hardest to live according to our values while not getting consumed by the I shoulds? That is the fact that we are human and we will miss the mark often. It's the great balance and I feel this will continue to be held, I know, within myself, that is as fearful and grieving as most of us are right now. And for me, it's been finding the things that are most pulling at my heart, one or two, to invest my time in, understanding I nor anyone else can do it all. And then to move out of the I should, it's for me also the understanding that amidst diversity and hardship isn't the word, but learning from cultures, and I pull back into my own Jewish culture for this, of joy as resistance, of despite all kinds of things and prejudices, to make that really important for living in the day-to-day life, because there is so much beauty and care surrounding us. So using that as an anchor and a grounding of value, and that we deserve, each one of us deserve that, and using that to fuel the one or two things that are really important to us so we can invest in those, because we need people that invest for the long term in the things that they care the most about.
We will be back with more of your questions in just a moment, but first we'll have a ministry moment from Meg Cox, who's going to talk a little bit about the great work of our promotions team, and then we'll have the offering, and then we'll be back with more questions.
Thanks. Good morning. So I'm Meg Cox. I've been leading the promotions committee lately, and I just want to talk to you for a few minutes, but I want to start by embarrassing Reverend Bill. Many of you were here a few years ago when we celebrated his 10th anniversary as our lead minister. One of the ways we celebrated was by commissioning a custom stole to be made for him, and I had no idea I'd be this lucky, but he's wearing it today. And those of you who don't know, inside of the stole, maybe you could model for us, inside the stole are printed a list of words that congregants use to describe him. And there are words like empowering. Don't you want to just show the inside there? Empowering, compassionate, insightful, and welcoming. There we go. There we go. And the bigger the word, the more people said it. So these qualities and this man are part of what keeps us coming back to this building and this community. Today's service centers around questions. The congregation was invited to ask our leaders absolutely anything on our mind. I thought the hippo answer was particularly enlightening. This is a time when the freedom to ask questions and demand answers feels urgent. At the Promotions Committee, we're all about opening our doors and inviting more people to join us. People who share our values, people who lean into the questions of what we can do to make the world a more just and compassionate place. So this is what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you right now to think about a friend or family member who you think would find sustenance and inspiration in this place in these times. And I'm inviting you to invite them by sharing 5 fabulous occasions to invite a friend to church this spring. I'm just going to list them, but they're also going to be in skylights, and conveniently enough, they're in your order of service. It's the last page, the last item, so you don't have to take notes. So these are the 5 things I'm sharing with you to be part of your invite. Number 1 is the promotions team, just like last year, is having a St. Patrick's Day brunch. And this is going to be on March 16th, the day before St. Patrick's Day. And in case you don't know it, newcomers eat brunch free. So this is a great opportunity to bring people to the service and then feed them, and they have a chance to have lots of wonderful conversations. Number 2, do you happen to know anybody who's concerned about climate change and what's going on in our country right now? You might want to bring them to the Earth Day service on April 13. We have a wonderful Earth Justice ministry here. Number 3, if you know somebody with little kids, our Easter service, which will be April 20, is a whole lot of fun, and we have an egg hunt for the kids. Number 4 is not a service, but something that we do that's wonderful every year, and that's our annual spring sale. And this year, it starts on Friday, April 2nd, and that's a Friday? Yes? May. Did I put May? Okay, I put April. Okay, May 2nd. So you might want to correct your thing here. It's May 2nd from 4 to 7 p.m., and then the next day, Saturday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. So that is a great opportunity to get people into our building, see our wonderful space. This is a wonderful thing that we do every year, and the money is contributed to wonderful organizations in our community. The last thing, 5 out of 5, is, do you know somebody who either is meditating now or wants to get into it? I think we all need more calm right now, and that's a wonderful way to do it. So there is a group of people who gathers every Sunday at 9:30 a.m. before the service, and it's a fabulous experience. You can bring somebody just for the meditation or stay for the service as well, but you're opening the doors to people who would love it here. Thank you.
What is a positive thing you can say about President Trump? Misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, racism, among other oppressions, have existed from the founding of this country and before. And I will also say unchecked capitalism. And for a number of decades, much policies around that or moving towards policies around that were in the shadows, happening quietly. And so I understand a lot more because it's very apparent where things are broken. And for me, when I know where things are broken, I know where I have the opportunity to put my energy towards healing, which is a lot harder to do when things are insidious and not so clear. And I will say, and this is something I learned working and in mentorship by the Reverend Dr. Bill Scholes, who was the president of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, and shared a sermon once called "What I've Learned from Torture" in his work and working in places. And he ended that with, even for the devil, there is an opportunity to make another move. That until our last breaths, we have an opportunity to make different choices. And while it won't affect the things that I will do moving forward with the understanding of what I know about a person and their actions, I will always hope in my heart for everyone that until their dying breath, they could make a different choice.
How do you define the universal spirit of love? Is it a disembodied force or is it something else? I think of it as a presence that's fully embodied in the sense that it's in my body, it's in your body, it's in our minds. I don't think of it as something that exists outside of the body. So it's fully embodied, but it's not partitioned in any particular bodies and kept out of any other bodies. It's universal, spirit of love. And I think it's a presence that can lead us toward further expressions of love, primarily in our relationships and also in our commitments. I'm trying to edge out my theology about our commitments to Gaia, to the ecosystem, to the generations beyond us. I still tend to think mostly in terms of people and animals, and I'm trying to stretch that part of my thinking. But that's how I think of it, more as a presence that, for me, is fully embodied. I've never had a disembodied moment. Every moment I've had has been fully in my body, and so that's where I look for wisdom and things like that.
Could you explain the different pronunciations between amen and amen? I've heard amen or amen, more so. I've heard a rabbi say it, and that's the way I've begun to say it more and more. I will reach out to others that grew up in Jewish tradition. I grew up in Jewish traditions, but not with Hebrew. So I'm believing it goes back to a pronunciation from the Hebrew. But if there are others that know more, raise your hand, let me know. I'm using it more and more based on grounding myself in my own traditions. Which is why I use both Amen and Blessed Be, traditions of my cultural heritage and my honoring the feminine, even within a tradition that was very steeped in masculine for a long time.
There were a couple in this email, so I'm going to pick the middle one. UU Princeton's recent hosting of an Afghan refugee family contravened a portion of the New Jersey Fire Code about duration of occupancy that may be more politically motivated than safety related. Are there any continuing actions with partner organizations to press for revising the code? Conversations have started with UU Faith Action, but I don't think they've moved very far along, but that's where that is. UU Faith Action has a lot on its plate. And they do an incredible amount of really, really good work, and they're asked to do even more really, really good and important work, more than one organization can do. So I'm happy to have those conversations with them. It may have been politically motivated. The reasoning that I heard was that it was actually trying to decrease the number of Airbnbs that were available because they were making the rental market much more difficult in the state, that it wasn't political, it was economic. We learned a lot. I won't go into great detail. Michelle Oshner is sitting right there and can help with this topic. But the question of can we house another family physically, can we structurally do it, is just one question, and there are many. And one of them is, do we have the capacity, the volunteer capacity to do it? It was a lot of work put on a few people for a very long time. It's something a lot of religious communities don't do because of how much work and effort it takes. So if we are to go in that direction again, it'll take a lot of all congregation discernment about our capacity to offer that sort of thing again. In the meantime, and this is another question, there are a million different ways to support people directly impacted by the hostility toward immigration and sanctuary issues in the current administration. And our Sanctuary and Immigration Ministry, Ted Fetter and Michelle Oshner, are partnered with a lot of great groups working on that. So I would check with Michelle and Ted to find out how you can get involved in that work.
This is a nice one for both of us, which is, what is your favorite thing to do? So my favorite thing to do is spending time, really quality time, with my family and my closest friends, especially when we get to experience things together, if we get to travel and learn something new together and just sort of explore. But I get my deepest sort of regeneration with them.
My kids are on the RE program, but if we had asked this question while they were here and I asked them to answer, they would say nap. You like to nap. It's my favorite thing. They would not be wrong. I like to take naps. And then conversely, I also like to run very long distances for no real purpose. That's an activity I enjoy quite a bit as well. If every day has a long run and a long nap, it's going to be a good day for me.
I'll take the long nap, not running. This is around ancestors. Many traditions, Native American, African American, and others, I believe that says refer to ancestors. For example, if one heals a relationship with a family member, some say all ancestors and descendants experience an uplifting energy. What are your thoughts? I love this question. And I can only share it by sharing a story from my personal life. Some of you know I grew up with Jewish grandparents and Catholic grandparents. My parents being from either tradition and their marriage not being supported. And my Catholic grandparents on a regular basis would essentially corner my mother and ask her to allow my father to come back to the church and also have us come to the church, because they really did, I believe, worry for our mortal souls in a for them, a genuine way. So there was a lot of hurt there. And they wanted my father, who was the youngest of four, and the only boy, to be a priest. And he married a Jewish girl. So there were a lot of hurts. And growing up, even as a child, I was aware of them. And at one point, long after my grandfather had died, when I was doing some healing modality body work with someone that was doing Reiki with me, in my own sort of mind's eye vision, my grandfather came to me and apologized that had been a feeling that they may have imparted on me and others. And I remember in my mind's eye, I said, I'm not the one you should be apologizing to. You really need to go visit my mother and my dad just as much. But I would say that experience was freeing in times of, and forgiving. And so I would share, if that's something that would allow you a similar feeling to lean into it and to the places that you can. Because I can only speak from my own experience, but that's what it was.
Why, give me glasses so I can read it. Why join and become a member if the exclusive benefits are pledging and voting? So what can I get as a market question? A ministry question is what can I give? And most people join because they want to give the blessings of the congregation to the next group of visitors and strangers and lonely and sick and folks who are walking through the front doors. So most people join whenever they join. Some people join very quickly. Some people take a long time to join. It's because they want to give the values of the congregation to the people who need what we have to offer. It's not so much to get, it's to give. That's the ministry understanding of membership.
Okay.
I'm going to do that.
You're going to do that. Okay.
And then we'll look at me. Okay.
Like on the spot talk show moments. Does the Spirit ever say dance to you? Does it ever?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
I was just wondering because it doesn't always dance here.
It does.
I grew up dancing. I grew up in dance classes from the time I was 3. So yes, the Spirit says dance to me, and I have a sign in my kitchen that says this kitchen is for dancing.
Nice. Excellent. Let's see. What is the meaning of life? Very simple one. That's an easy question. So I do actually think about this quite a bit. What is the meaning of life? For some people, a better question will be, what is the purpose? Not so much the meaning. What is the purpose of life? And regardless, I think it's a question we all have to answer for ourselves. I think when someone answers it for us, it's not authentically ours as much. So when we come together and offer ideas on it, we can encourage each other's thinking in depth and come to answers that make sense for us individually. But I would be wary of someone else telling you this is the meaning of your life. This is the meaning of your life. This is your purpose. I think it's better for that to be the result of your own growth and discernment. And so for me, the meaning of my life is to love, to serve, to praise, to grow, and to die. That's the meaning of my life. Love, serve, praise, grow, and to remember at some point I'm going to die, so live this life fully, as fully as I can. All right? So we'll do... that's it. And the last one we'll close with is, what is your guilty pleasure?
I watch a lot of streaming services. Like a lot. I will say it's because I went to a school for communications, television, and film, and part of it is that. I'm a visual learner. But yeah, I will take a nap, but there will be something streaming in the background.
I don't really have any guilt about this. I like to I like to watch grown adults yell at each other on TV about sports. I like to watch it. I like it. It has no import in the world. I'm not invested in most of it, but I enjoy watching grown people yell at each other about, defensive schemes and things like that. I enjoy it.
So what you just said is you've absolved me now of my guilt.
That's right. Yeah, there's no guilt. Thank you for your questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to them all, but that kind of happens every time, which says maybe we should do this service more often. We'll look for another Sunday on the calendar to do it. And at the end of our hour, we extinguish our chalice, knowing that its light carries us until we gather again. Go forth grateful for the moments before you, the breath within you, the people among you, and the Spirit guiding you toward lives of love and kindness. And go forth knowing that you are held always and always with everyone else by that great love of no beginning and never ending. Go in peace, and amen.